Welcome to this 365 Freedom Strategy session. Today we're breaking down the mechanics of inner courage and why your biggest business bottleneck is your addiction to certainty.
And that addiction to certainty is exactly what we need to systematically tear down today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're listening to this, you are an ambitious founder.
Yeah.
You're a leader. You're the one responsible for driving the momentum in your organization.
Right.
And your entire professional life up to this point has probably been built on analyzing data, forecasting outcomes.
Mitigating risk.
Exactly. Mitigating risk and engineering predictability. But there's this hidden friction point, a glitch in your internal system.
And it's a glitch that stalls progress more effectively than, honestly, any market downturn or supply chain failure.
Oh, without a doubt. It's your own internal demand for a feeling of readiness, the demand to feel ready before you take the next and necessary step.
I really want to spend some time on this concept today. The strategy materials we're looking at, specifically the MoneyMind Week 5 curriculum, they refer to it as the bottleneck of certainty.
Or the green light fallacy.
Yeah, the green light fallacy. The core argument here is incredibly profound, mostly because it exposes this behavior we all try so hard to hide.
Right. The curriculum argues that founders systematically sabotage their own growth by waiting for an emotional green light.
You just sit there. You're looking at a necessary business decision, and you tell yourself you're just waiting for absolute confidence.
You want to feel total certainty before you move a muscle.
Exactly.
And it's a really fascinating psychological trap when you break it down. Think about what's actually happening in your brain when you do this.
You're demanding the reward up front.
Yes. You're demanding the emotional reward of confidence before you've actually executed the behavior that generates the confidence.
Because confidence is the payout.
Right. It's the psychological payout for having successfully navigated a risk. It's the residue of survival.
But the human brain is wired for preservation. It wants safety.
Exactly. It wants safety, so it demands that reward up front. You're asking your nervous system to give you the feeling of having completed the task before you've even initiated it.
Which is biologically backward.
Completely backward. You're demanding the emotional payout of certainty without making the mandatory investment of action.
It makes me think of an analogy here. It's like sitting in your driveway, staring at the steering wheel of your car,
Yeah.
and refusing to put the vehicle in drive until you can verify that every single traffic light between your house and downtown is green.
It's completely absurd when you picture it like that.
You'd literally never get to work.
Never.
But operationally, as leaders, that is exactly what we do every single day.
We just dress it up in professional terminology.
Right. We call it strategic delay.
Or we say we're gathering more information. We tell our boards, you're waiting for the market to stabilize.
But the source material explicitly calls this out as a highly sophisticated form of procrastination.
That is exactly what it is. It's sophisticated procrastination. And the business impact of this is devastating.
We really need to frame this as a tangible business bottleneck for the listener.
Think about the daily operations of your company. You are the engine. The speed of the leader is the speed of the team.
So when leadership waits for comfort to make a decision, momentum completely stalls.
Completely. If the engine pauses every single time the terrain gets unfamiliar, the entire vehicle loses speed.
Your team feels that hesitation.
Your market position reflects it.
And your competitors exploit it.
Exactly.
Okay, hold on a second. I need to play devil's advocate here because I know exactly what the founder listening to this is thinking right now.
Let's hear it.
I understand the traffic light analogy for a minor inconvenience. But what if I'm a founder staring down a $5 million pivot?
Right.
Or I'm about to restructure my entire executive team? Or launch a product line that could either decouple our revenue or literally bankrupt us?
The high-stakes decisions.
Yeah. Are you seriously telling me I shouldn't wait until I am absolutely 100% certain? Because acting while terrified in those scenarios sounds less like courage and more like a fantastic way to destroy a company.
That is a crucial distinction, and it's exactly where most leaders get confused. You are conflating operational data with emotional certainty.
Unpack that.
Gathering necessary data, running financial models, consulting with advisors, that is operational diligence. That's absolutely required.
So the data gathering isn't the delay.
No, the data gathering is necessary. But what the MoneyMind materials are targeting is the moment after the data has been gathered.
The moment the spreadsheet is done.
Exactly. The spreadsheet is as complete as it will ever be. The models are run, the advice is in, the decision is clear, but you still hesitate.
Because the data can't eliminate the risk.
Right. It can't eliminate the fundamental risk of the unknown. No spreadsheet can guarantee the future. So, you wait. You ask for one more report.
One more meeting.
You schedule one more meeting. Not because it will change the operational reality, but because you're hoping it will finally cure your emotional discomfort.
And it won't.
It never will.
That distinction is incredibly sharp. The data is there, but the emotional guarantee isn't. And that's exactly where the concept of inner courage comes into play.
Yes.
There's a foundational quote from the MoneyMind Week 5 module that addresses this exact gap. It says, "Courage begins quietly, in the moment you choose to trust yourself over your fear."
It's a great quote.
I love the phrasing because it strips away all the cinematic bravado we usually associate with courage. It takes the heroism out of it and replaces it with pure mechanics.
It positions courage as a mechanical bridge. Courage is the necessary bridge between the reality of uncertainty and the eventual arrival of confidence.
We have this massive misconception in the business world about what courage actually feels like.
We do. Courage is not a pre-existing emotional state. You don't wake up feeling courageous in the same way you wake up feeling rested. Courage is an active, operational decision. It is the choice to execute the necessary step despite the overwhelming presence of fear.
What if courage isn't a feeling at all, but a decision?
That's the fundamental question the curriculum asks.
It's an operational choice. You're deciding that the forward direction of your business is vastly more important than your temporary internal discomfort.
You choose direction over delay.
Direction over delay. And this leads us directly into a micro story from the source material that perfectly illustrates this. It grounds all this high-level psychological theory into a very mundane reality.
A reality every single person listening has experienced.
Yeah. Let me set the scene based on that story. The author writes about sitting with a decision they had been avoiding for months.
And the crucial part is, it wasn't dramatic.
Exactly. There was no life-altering crossroads. The building wasn't on fire. It was just a small, necessary step they knew they needed to take.
Maybe a difficult conversation with an underperforming vendor?
Or finally, killing a legacy service that was draining resources. But the problem was the trembling feeling beneath the decision.
They kept telling themselves they needed more certainty before moving. They wanted that tremor to stop.
So why are these non-dramatic decisions actually the most dangerous to a founder's trajectory?
It's a fascinating operational question. If it were a massive existential crisis, say, a major client suddenly pulls their contract.
You'd have to act.
Right, your survival instincts would activate. Adrenaline floods your system. The sheer necessity of survival instantly overrides your need for comfort, and you execute.
You don't have the luxury of waiting for certainty in an emergency.
Exactly. But a small, necessary step, a minor personnel issue, a slight pivot in marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Because it's not an immediate emergency, it is incredibly easy to justify delaying it.
You can hide the delay.
You can mask it.
That is the insidious part. You mask it from your team, and more dangerously, you mask it from yourself.
You tell yourself, I'll have that difficult conversation with the sales director next week when I have more performance data.
Or I'll address that toxic team dynamic after the quarter ends.
Right, so I don't disrupt the workflow. It's a small delay. But the strategy materials highlight how these exact delays rot the foundation of your momentum.
It's a slow leak in the tire.
And the danger lies entirely in their subtlety. You don't realize you're sabotaging the company because no single delay feels fatal.
Missing one difficult conversation doesn't bankrupt the firm.
But over months, the accumulated weight of avoided actions creates a massive drag on your operations. It creates a culture of avoidance.
Let's look closely at the physical reality of action described in that text, because this is where the biology really meets the business strategy.
The author mentions the trembling feeling beneath the decision.
Yes, and notes that when they finally acted, they said, "My hands were shaking, but my direction was steady."
That contrast is phenomenal.
Hand shaking, but direction steady. We're conditioned to assume that if our hands are shaking, if our heart rate elevates, it means we shouldn't be doing the thing.
We interpret the physiological response of fear as a stop sign.
We think our body is telling us the strategy is flawed.
And we misinterpret our own biology constantly. The shaking hands, the elevated heart rate, that's just your sympathetic nervous system activating.
It's just adrenaline.
Right, it's an evolutionary response to entering the unknown. For our ancestors, the unknown usually meant a physical threat, a predator.
But today, the unknown is a difficult email.
Or a financial pivot. Your brain doesn't know the difference. It just pumps the adrenaline.
Yeah.
That physical response is not an indicator that the decision is strategically wrong.
It just means the decision is important.
Exactly. It means you're leaving your comfort zone and entering the territory where growth actually happens.
The author's realization in the microstory is the ultimate turning point here. They write, "Eventually, I realized certainty would not come first."
That is the mandatory operational shift for any successful leader. You have to accept that harsh reality. Certainty will not come first.
You have to act with the tremor, not after it passes.
Because if you wait for the trembling to stop, if you wait for your nervous system to calm down and feel completely safe, you will be waiting forever.
And your business stagnates and decays in the meantime.
Accepting this biological reality is what separates functional managers from exceptional leaders.
The exceptional leader feels the exact same tremor.
Yes, they aren't fearless robots. They feel the anxiety, they acknowledge the shaking hands, but they proceed with a steady direction anyway.
They systematically decouple their physical sensation of anxiety from their strategic execution.
They do not require their nervous system's permission to advance the company.
I love that. They operate above their biology.
Precisely.
Let's expand on that idea of direction, because it ties perfectly into a massive technical distinction the MoneyMind materials make. We need to define the difference between recklessness and quiet courage.
This is a massive societal misunderstanding.
It really is, and it causes leaders to either freeze up completely or make catastrophic errors.
The materials note that courage is heavily misunderstood in modern business culture. People imagine it as a dramatic moment, a bold leap.
We visualize the maverick CEO making a wild bet-the-company pivot on a whim.
Totally fearless, silencing the boardroom with their absolute certainty.
We think of it as loud action, the massive acquisition, the total rebrand. But if we look closely at that loud, bold leap concept, we start to see something else entirely.
We start to see sheer recklessness dressed up as leadership.
Exactly. It's vital to define recklessness in contrast to what these strategy notes propose. What is recklessness?
Recklessness is moving without a steady direction. It's often fueled by a subconscious desire to seek adrenaline just to mask the underlying fear.
Or acting impulsively without any strategic grounding.
Right. Simply because the pressure of uncertainty became too much to bear. A reckless leader might make a huge, disruptive decision just to relieve the internal tension of waiting.
They are actually honoring what's true or necessary for the business.
No, they're just creating motion to soothe their own anxiety. They're throwing a grenade into the room so they don't have to sit in the quiet discomfort of a strategic pause.
That's a brilliant way to frame it. Recklessness is just another way of avoiding the quiet discomfort. You make a massive noise so you can't hear your own heart rate.
But the source material defines quiet courage in strict, deliberate contrast to this chaos.
According to the clinical notes and the curriculum, quiet courage is fundamentally a moment of self-honesty.
It's taking one honest step, honoring what feels objectively true for the business, even when subjective fear is present.
Keeping your direction steady even when your hands shake.
It's not about eliminating the fear. It's about refusing to let the fear dictate the direction of the enterprise.
Recklessness is closing your eyes and jumping off a cliff, hoping you build wings on the way down.
Exactly. While quiet courage is keeping your eyes wide open, seeing the cliff, feeling the terrifying height, calculating the descent, and calmly taking the necessary step forward.
Because your strategic direction requires it. The source texts provide a brilliant strategic filter for this exact moment. It's the choice between truth and safety.
The filter is everything. Courage begins when you choose truth over fear, direction over delay.
Let's dig into that diagnostic concept, truth versus safety. This is the ultimate test of a leader.
As a leader, your internal emotional compass is constantly pulling you toward safety.
Safety is the known entity.
Safety is the delayed conversation. Safety is keeping the product in development for another 6 months to perfect it, rather than launching it and facing the market's judgment.
Safety is holding on to a mediocre employee because replacing them feels like too much work.
Safety feels good in the short term, but the truth is usually incredibly uncomfortable.
The truth is the product needs to launch now, flaws and all, so the market can actually test it.
The truth is the team member is toxic and needs to be let go today.
Before they poison the rest of the department.
Exactly. The truth is your marketing strategy is failing, and you need to admit you were wrong.
Safety protects your feelings in the present moment. Truth protects your business in the long term.
When the text talks about a choice to move before you feel fully ready, it's asking you to prioritize the truth of the situation over your personal desire for emotional safety.
It's asking you to be an adult in the room.
Exactly right.
And this brings us to the core mechanism of how you actually build your capacity to do this. How do you go from someone paralyzed by the need for certainty to a leader who routinely executes on truth despite the fear?
We need to examine the architecture of identity, the psychological concept of building in motion.
This is perhaps the most crucial equation in the entire MoneyMind Week 5 module. It completely flipped my understanding of how confidence is built.
The material states, identity growth rarely happens in certainty. It happens in motion.
If we look at the broader picture of leadership development and behavioral psychology, you have to understand that you're constantly constructing your identity as a founder.
Your identity is not a static list of traits you were born with. It's an active, ongoing construction project.
Every day, through your actions, you're telling your brain who you are.
And the research makes it abundantly clear that this identity formation only happens when you are in motion. You cannot think your way into a new identity.
You cannot plan your way into being courageous.
You have to act your way there.
Let's look at the negative feedback loop of doubt that the text describes, because this is terrifying once you realize you're doing it.
It is.
The materials note that each time you delay because you're waiting to feel ready, you reinforce doubt.
Now, normally, we think of delay as a neutral action.
We think, I'm just hitting pause, I'm just stopping the clock while I figure things out, no harm done.
But the psychological reality is that inaction is actually a highly potent action. Delay is never neutral. Delay is not a pause button. It is an active reinforcement of a negative neural pathway.
Every single time you look at a necessary business decision, feel the tremor of fear, and decide to wait for certainty, you are actively training your brain to distrust your own capabilities.
You're sending an undeniable signal to your subconscious. I cannot handle this right now. The fear is stronger than my competence.
You're literally building an identity of hesitation.
Precisely. You are altering the architecture of your self-concept. You're teaching your nervous system that fear is a valid, logical reason to stop operations.
And over time, through neuroplasticity, that doubt compounds.
It's like compound interest on a toxic debt. It becomes your default operational state. You become a leader who inherently distrusts their own instincts.
Who always needs one more meeting, one more data point.
And you become the bottleneck.
But conversely, there's the positive feedback loop of trust. The text states that each time you choose a step aligned with who you are becoming, you reinforce trust in yourself.
The microstory we discussed earlier notes that after taking the step with shaking hands, the author felt something profound shift internally.
They wrote, not because it was perfect, but because I had shown myself that courage is not loud. It is simply the choice to trust your own next step.
Notice the phrasing there. The outcome of the action didn't even have to be perfect. The perfection of the external result is largely irrelevant to the internal construction of the identity.
The act itself is what builds the internal architecture.
By taking this step despite the fear, by moving while the hands are shaking, you are sending a completely different signal to your subconscious.
You're saying, I am capable of moving forward even when I'm deeply uncomfortable.
My direction is stronger than my fear.
I want to introduce an analogy here to make this tangible. Think of your capacity for courage as an internal ledger, an accounting system for your identity.
Okay, I like that.
Every single time you delay a necessary action because you want to feel safe, you make a withdrawal from that ledger of self-trust. You deplete your account.
And every time you act with a steady direction, despite the shaking hands, you make a deposit.
Every time you choose truth over safety, deposit. And over time, those small, quiet deposits compound. They permanently alter your baseline identity.
You systematically transform from a founder who waits for certainty into a founder who executes in reality.
Which is why the source material heavily emphasizes that quiet courage is still courage. You do not need to make massive public leaps to fund that internal ledger.
In fact, it is the quiet, private moments of self-honesty that create the strongest foundation of self-trust.
The difficult emails you finally send, the boundaries you finally enforce with a client.
The honest look at failing metrics you finally stop ignoring. Those quiet moments are the bricks and mortar of your leadership identity.
Which brings us perfectly to the strategic execution phase of this session, because all this theory is completely useless without application.
We can talk about neuroplasticity and internal ledgers all day, but if it doesn't change what you do at your desk tomorrow morning, it's just intellectual entertainment.
Exactly. And the MoneyMind curriculum provides a highly specific, immediate directive to translate this theory into practice. It's an operational tool called the 10-minute audit.
The directive across all these strategy materials is remarkably consistent and highly actionable. The instruction is to literally take 10 quiet minutes today.
The assignment is highly specific. Notice one small decision you have been delaying out of fear.
Just 10 minutes. Take 10 quiet minutes today to notice one small decision you've been delaying out of fear.
Let's be honest, if you're listening to this right now, whether you're on your commute, at the gym, or sitting in your office, a specific delayed decision just popped into your head the moment I said that sentence.
You know exactly what it is.
Acknowledge it, don't push it away, bring it to the absolute forefront of your mind.
Now, the text poses the ultimate diagnostic question for a leader's operational compass. I want you to apply this question to that exact decision you're picturing right now.
What step feels true, not safe?
What step feels true, not safe? That distinction changes the entire game.
It forces you to bypass your intellectual justifications.
Because as a highly intelligent founder, you have almost certainly built a very logical-sounding argument for why you are delaying this decision.
You tell yourself you need more market research.
The macroeconomic timing isn't right. The quarterly budget doesn't support it yet.
Your intellect is brilliant at building fortresses to protect your emotions.
But when you ask yourself what feels true, your intuition instantly cuts through all those rationalizations. You know the truth.
The truth is, you are waiting to feel ready. The truth is, you're scared of the friction the decision will cause.
And the final instruction in this audit, pulled directly from the curriculum notes, is the key to breaking the paralysis. It says, take the smallest version of that step today.
The smallest viable action.
It reminds us that loud, massive leaps aren't required to break the bottleneck. You don't need to resolve the entire complex situation before you go to sleep tonight.
You just need to shift your operational state from static to in motion.
Send the preliminary email asking for the meeting. Draft the outline of the restructuring document. Make the one phone call.
Break the seal on the delay. That's all courage needs to take root. Just a shift from static to in motion.
Because as we've exhaustively established today, identity builds in motion. Once you take the smallest step, the dynamic changes.
You're no longer the founder hiding from the decision. You are the founder executing the process.
What is truly transformative about this entire framework is how it fundamentally reshapes your relationship with fear. You stop trying to eliminate it.
You stop reading books on how to be fearless.
And instead, you start learning how to operate efficiently alongside it. You recognize that the trembling hands, the elevated heart rate, the anxieties, they're just physical realities of operating at a high level.
They're environmental conditions, like rain on a windshield.
But your steady direction is your strategic choice. You learn to drive in the rain.
Let's unpack the broader implications of this as we look toward the future of your operations. When you begin to implement this 10-minute audit regularly, you're going to notice a profound shift in your company's velocity.
Because the bottleneck of certainty doesn't just slow you down, it creates a pervasive culture of hesitation throughout your entire enterprise.
Your team watches your every move. If the leader demands absolute certainty before moving, the entire organization subconsciously adopts that same paralyzing standard.
That is a critical systems-level insight. Your addiction to certainty is highly contagious. If you require a green light for every minor strategic shift, your directors and managers will start requiring it from you.
They will stop bringing you innovative ideas, because innovation inherently lacks absolute predictability.
They'll bring you safe, mediocre ideas that can be backed up by endless, meaningless data. Innovation dies in an environment that demands absolute predictability.
By practicing quiet courage, you're modeling a tolerance for ambiguity that your entire team will inherit.
You literally change the DNA of the company. It moves the organization from a defensive, reactive posture to an offensive, proactive one.
You stop reacting to fear and start executing on truth.
And remember the physics of the negative and positive feedback loops we discussed earlier. This isn't a one-time fix.
You don't just do the 10-minute audit once and suddenly become a fearless titan of industry.
The friction between waiting for readiness and the necessity of action is a daily operational reality. It is a constant gravitational pull.
Yeah.
You will face this friction tomorrow morning and the next day and next quarter.
Every single day presents a new opportunity to either reinforce doubt through delay or reinforce trust through motion.
The internal ledger is always open for business. Every email, every meeting, every strategic pivot is a chance to make a deposit or withdrawal.
If we look closely at the language in one of the specific strategy emails we reviewed, it summarizes this perfectly.
It says, "There is a quiet form of courage you may be underestimating. It is not the kind that shouts or announces itself. It is the kind that shows up when you take one honest step without knowing how everything will unfold."
That final phrase, without knowing how everything will unfold, is the ultimate definition of operating without certainty.
It is the ultimate test of a leader. Can you execute without the guarantee? Because, let's be completely honest with each other, in business, there are no guarantees.
The green light is an absolute myth. It's a complete fabrication of a nervous system that desperately wants to stay comfortable. Waiting for the green light is waiting for a train that is never going to arrive.
This is exactly why the differentiation between recklessness and quiet courage is so vital to maintain. If we simply sat here and told leaders to just take risks and stop overthinking, that could easily be misinterpreted as a license for chaos.
We are not advocating for blind leaps.
Recklessness is closing your eyes, ignoring the data, and jumping. Quiet courage is keeping your eyes wide open, respecting the data but knowing it is incomplete, seeing the risk clearly, feeling the fear physically, and calmly taking the necessary step forward.
Recklessness is loud. Courage is quiet. Recklessness ignores the data to soothe anxiety. Courage respects the data, but absolutely refuses to let a lack of perfect data cause paralysis.
Exactly. When the text talks about a moment of self-honesty, it's asking you to strip away the ego of leadership.
The ego wants to project absolute confidence at all times. The ego wants the board, the employees, and the market to believe you have all the answers mapped out.
Self-honesty is admitting to yourself in the quiet of your own office, "I am terrified right now. My hands are shaking. I do not know for sure if this will work, but I know this is the truest, most necessary direction."
That internal admission is where the real power lies. You don't have to broadcast the tremor to the world. You don't need to call an all-hands meeting to announce you are scared.
But you absolutely must acknowledge it to yourself. Because if you deny the fear, if you pretend you're just being strategic, you will subconsciously invent reasons to delay the action.
You'll disguise your fear as prudence, and that is a fatal error.
Disguising fear as prudence is the most common, most dangerous trap for highly intelligent founders. You're smart enough to invent incredibly sophisticated reasons for why you should wait.
You build a magnificent intellectual fortress around your hesitation.
But the 10-minute audit is designed to cut through all of that intellect like a laser. What step feels true, not safe? Your intellect will always argue for safety. Your instinct knows the truth.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, analyzing the biology of fear, the mechanics of delay, the internal ledger of self-trust, and the sheer operational necessity of moving while your hands are shaking.
It's a lot to process, but it's foundational.
As we wrap up our analysis of this strategy module, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something that builds directly on everything we have broken down today, but shifts the perspective entirely.
We have established extensively that waiting to feel ready only serves to actively reinforce your own doubt. You are training your own brain to hesitate. That is the internal consequence.
But let's talk about the external consequence. We've spent this entire session focusing on how this addiction to certainty affects you, the founder, and your internal architecture.
Right.
But consider this. If identity is truly built in motion, and your team is watching your every single move, what identity are you inadvertently building for the next generation of leaders in your company?
If they see you constantly demanding an impossible green light, you aren't just stalling your business today. You are actively raising an army of hesitators for tomorrow.
You are institutionalizing fear. Think about that legacy the next time your hands start to shake and you consider hitting the pause button.
The certainty will not come first. The confidence will not come first. The courage is the bridge, and you have to build it while you are walking on it, not while you are standing on the shore.
If you're ready to strengthen your inner foundation and move toward your future, visit 365 Freedom online. This has been a 365 Freedom Strategy session.